Good morning. Let me move this in a little bit. Hi, everybody. Hey, I'm Tyler. I'm the Bulletproof Pastor. Bulletproof because of God's armor, not because of what's under it. And good morning. I don't know how many of you have, I know you've heard it because last year it went off every time. We have one of those Christmas clocks that every hour it chimes like a grandfather clock, only it plays a Christmas carol. And fortunately, it shuts down at 9 p.m. and doesn't wake up again until 6 a.m. So it gets quiet during that time so you can sleep. But other than that, every hour on the hour, it plays some kind of a Christmas carol. And at 10 o'clock, when it's time for us to end, you're going to hear once again, "Oh, Christmas Tree." They have a handful of secular Christmassy songs in there, and that's one of them. Another one's White Christmas, but there's only a couple of them. Most of them are "O Little Town of Bethlehem," "Deck the Halls," "The First Noel," those. And they're shortened up, of course, but they're pretty nice little songs. But good morning. Hey, let's say good morning to those in the house. Danny Thrive was first in. Lucy C., Pepper Leah, Java Mama, Penny Ponders, Cheryl, good morning. Thomas Pearson, Arizona, Tanya, good morning. Got everybody. And others coming in as we get going. You guys are really quick. Right at 9:30, you guys hit the log on. We're wondering whether or not we hear the echo. Oh, Moni, good morning. Praying for you this morning. And Ruth J, glad you guys are here. Today's a chemo day, right? And lots of prayers for you today, and for tomorrow, as the aftermath of chemo is more the problem than the day, I think. Boy, wishing you very best. Oh, your notice comes a little later. Okay. Oh, tomorrow is chemo. Okay. Well, then we're glad we got you today. Amen. Hey, we're looking at these three chapters in Proverbs that deal with fidelity, marital fidelity, and or moral. Now, moral is a whole lot more than sexual morality, but in this case, that's what it's dealing with in these three chapters. But we're going to take a short little break because the first half of chapter 6 deals with another area of weakness that tends to lead to marital infidelity, if you will. And okay, today is your sister's surgery, spine surgery. Okay, Moni, we'll pray for your sister too. And pray all that goes well. So let's take a look at chapter 6, because chapter 6 of Proverbs, the title I have is Warning Against Idleness and Deceit. Well, they tend to go hand in hand. Idleness is generally due to believing deceit in your own heart. You've been deceived into thinking that you have more time than not. And let's just begin. My son, if thou be surety for thy friend. That's, boy, I look at that kind of like you are the guarantor of your friend's credit, or, standing up for your friend's word. If you have to stand up for somebody else's word, it means their word isn't considered trustworthy. Boy, that's kind of sketchy, isn't it? Why, if their word isn't good enough, you're going to put your word out there to back them up? My son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand with a stranger, thou art snared with the words of thy mouth. Thou art taken with the words of thy mouth. In other words, it's kind of like co-signing for somebody, if the bank doesn't see them as a good credit risk, then you're going to put your resources down as guarantee for their credit. I've only ever done that once. And I did that for a young couple that were, they were Christian school teachers in the school that our church had. So it was, an extension of our church ministry that we had a Christian school, and a young couple, both of them teachers in that school. They had just been married, and they had basically no credit whatsoever. And in order to build their credit, unfortunately, that's the world we're in, that you have to establish credit before they'll give you credit. It would be better if you just saved up your money and didn't need credit, but a lot of the way this world works, people get caught up in that. It's interesting. Somebody who saves their money buys everything with cash, and they've purchased a car, they've purchased a small house, all of this stuff was all purchased with cash. They don't have a credit card. They don't have they don't have all of these credit building assets, and they finally go to the bank to borrow some money for some purpose. The bank says, "Oh, I'm sorry, your credit score isn't high enough." Really? Compare that to somebody who's in hock to their eye teeth, and their credit score is really high because they owe their soul to the company store, and they pay almost 80% of every paycheck to making payments, and that's a good credit risk, according to the bank. Well, this couple, good friends of ours, they needed to build their credit, and so what they did was they bought a bed for they needed a new bed, and so they bought a bed, and rather than pay cash for it, which they could, they did time payments on it. But they couldn't even get that without somebody to back them up. And I looked at it and I said, I would buy them that bed and gift it to them in a heartbeat. And so the worst that could happen with this deal was that if I co-signed for them on this bed and they missed the payments, then I would have to make up that payment, and or they would come and repossess the bed. I was willing to do that. I was willing to just buy them the bed, but they needed that to build their credit, and I was willing to do that. So I wasn't snared with the words of my mouth. I had considered the cost and was willing to just gift them that. And of course, they made every last payment. They built their credit up, and today they have a home and probably still sacked with another 25 years or 20 years of payments to pay it off. But it was what was willing to be done. You have no idea the number of people that co-sign for a loan to which they're not ready to make good if that person defaults. People have lost their own homes because they co-signed for a friend to get their house. And they thought, well, surely they're going to make all the payments. What if they don't? Have you considered that? Is that something you're willing to do? And if you're not willing to absorb their loan, then don't ever co-sign for anything. And make that a very, very serious subject to go forward with. And that's even considering your children. If you can't afford their default on that loan and what that would cost you, don't go into it. And you better consider it. And here we even have the cat is playing with the box that we're still unpacking the boxes of Christmas decorations, and that clock that I told you about, the box is on the floor and the cat is climbing into it. Sassy. Just a second. I got to move that box. She's going to play with that all day long if I don't. It's just way too much fun. Yeah, her favorite toy is a wad of aluminum foil made into a ball because it just dances and bounces all over the floor, and she will play with that for hours on end. So, okay. So it says, thou art taken with the words of thy mouth. Verse 3, it says, do this now, my son, and deliver thyself when thou art come into the hand of thy friend. Go humble thyself and make sure thy friend. Give not sleep to thine eyes, nor slumber to thine eyelids. Deliver thyself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, and as a bird from the hand of the fowler. If your friend is really your friend, then he will still be your friend if you don't co-sign, if you don't go into it. It may be a test of friendship, wouldn't it? That, I'm just not at a point where I'm ready to do that. It's not that you're not my friend, it's that I'm not secure enough in my own structure of finances to be able to extend it to that. It's beyond the limits of our budget right now. Fine. In the case of these two teachers, they would still have been our friend. I was willing to do it only because I was ready to accept that, and I was at a place where I could absorb that cost and would do it willingly. But if you're not at the point of being able to absorb that, like co-signing for a house loan, I couldn't do that. That would have been beyond our financial limits. And he said, well, don't you trust me? Yes, I trust you. But I also know that the world is what it is, and things change suddenly. And you could find yourself unemployed, out of pocket, and unable to make your payments. And I'm unable to make up the difference. Maybe my income is going to falter, and I can't trust the future that well to be able to make good that loan, and you would lose your house. You need somebody else that can make good that loan so that you don't lose your house. That's what a co-signer is all about. So make sure your friend. And if they don't understand that, then maybe their friendship is rather shallow, and the only thing they're doing is looking for a sucker instead of looking for, you as a friend. If your friendship is based on your putting out to secure their toys or their financial success, then perhaps you're not quite the friend you thought you were. It says, so make sure you're a friend and get yourself free. Now here's the advice to those in this world, because this is huge. These next 3 verses are enormous. The next passage is enormous about the social problem we have today in this world. And that's providing for your own, making provision, working, having a work ethic. We have lost the work ethic in America today. I saw a map or a graph that showed the disproportional financial wealth in America. It's like 80 or 90% of the wealth in America is held by the upper, like less than 3% of the population. And people look at that and saying, oh, this is wrong. Wealth needs to be dispersed over the population. Well, if it's pixie dust given to you by your fairy godmother riding a unicorn, then that's true. But wealth, by and large, is earned. Wealth, by and large, is something that is worked for diligently over time. And it's probably only about 3% of America that has the work ethic to apply themselves to the acquisition of wealth. Personally, wealth is overrated, and I'm not looking for wealth. I never have. If you want wealth, then you don't work for someone else. You don't, very little wealth acquisition is had by holding down a position in a large company. I worked for the Boeing company for almost 20 years. And in that 20 years, I was paid well. I had good benefits, good company benefits. I mean, I got medical and dental, and it met my family's needs quite well. But it was not a path to wealth. I mean, you could take your good income and invest it into long-term savings accounts or long-term growth accounts, and you could do quite well and be rather well off financially for having worked for that company. But it's not the path to wealth. The path to wealth is almost entirely entrepreneurship, owning your own company, building your own company. And there are those who complain that the person, they don't make all that money, but the owner of the company, the CEO of the company, is making, filthy rich amounts of money. Why do they make so much money and I don't? Well, they assume all the risk. They don't have company benefited medical and dental and all of that. They went out they put their house on the line and sweated out all of the tough promotion of their company and made all of the wise decisions to promote their company and paid out all of the company benefits to the employees so that he could get good employees and keep them and promote them. And he made all of the payments and all of the taxing and all of the structural things of the company and assumed all of the risk to make that company successful. And now the employee who comes in and starts drawing a paycheck starts complaining that he makes too much money. Well, how much risk did the employee take? They didn't share the risk, but they want to share the finance or the financial gains of the company. It's not the way it works, folks. The person who risks that much or risks the most is the one who gains the most. And that's why CEOs of companies make that much money. Now, there are places where the CEOs don't earn it. And we've seen that to be the downfall of major companies, Boeing included. But those who build the company gain the most. And this is where, this young man that in our area, in a very small sense, he began cleaning carpets. And he became the best carpet cleaner in the area, and everybody needs a carpet cleaner now and then. And so he would he built up his small company, a one-man proprietor, a single proprietor business, and he built that company up to the point that he then had employees that worked for him, and he had a small business that worked in this area quite well, and he worked hard at it, and he was blessed. The company grew, and he was able then to sell the company at a very good profit. He profited a lot, and his house was paid off, and his company was very strong. He was able to sell it, and he moved his family to another part of Texas, where he built a beautiful home, raised his family, and could basically retire at, I think, about 40 and do extremely well. How is that possible? Because he sweated the most. He invested the most. He worked the most. And he accepted the greatest amount of risk. And for that, he had the greatest part of the reward. This is what God is telling us here in verses 6, 7, and 8 and following. Go to the ant, thou sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. Consider the ways of the ant. Little bitty creature, but you never saw anything so busy. I've never seen an anthill with a bunch of ants hanging around in hammocks. You know, the ants just never invented a hammock. They don't sleep, or they don't rest in that way. They don't just lay around and do nothing. Which, having no guide, overseer, or ruler, doesn't need a boss cracking the whip saying, hey, lazy, get back to work. Get back in that field and get working. Nope. No ruler. She provideth her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest. Because when is food available? Ants will gather seed and vegetation and things when it's growing during the summer. And they are out. Boy, they just spring to action. And they go out and they work. And they work. And they gather and they bring it in and they store it up. Why? Because they know winter's coming. How do they know that? I don't know, but God has put that intelligence in their head that they bust their little tookuses gathering food when the food is available. And they store it up for the winter. And that's how they make it through till spring. The FBI, CIA, and other agencies like that, is it not amazing that they do the bulk of their recruiting for agents to work for them from the Midwest of the United States? What's so special about the Midwest? The Midwest is a place that has very harsh winters and a relatively short growing season, but it's very fertile land. But I'll tell you what, winter or Midwest farmers, they have to actually start working their fields even in the winter time. They call it white fertilizer. They actually, when a snowfall hits, they will actually disc in the snow into the soil, because trapped in that snow is nitrogen, and because it falls through the air and it brings nitrogen down to the ground. And so while it's laying on top of the snow, on top of the soil, they will disc it in, plow it right into the soil, and it adds nitrogen to the ground. Because in the springtime, the plants will feed on that, and that nitrogen will benefit them. They actually work their fields in the winter when there's nothing growing. And in some cases, they will plant even in the fall, because that seed will come up in the spring. I guess they don't disc those fields, but they will plant the fall wheat so that it rides through the winter and then pops up in springs and grows in the spring. And a farmer in the Midwest, he learns a work ethic that you better bust your tail every day you can. Because if you work hard, help your neighbors, and pray for good rain at the right time, you have a good chance of surviving the winter. Because the winters are harsh. And I'll tell you what, they learn a work ethic and they learn a sense of honor and loyalty by being a farmer in the Midwest. And those are the qualities that these agencies look for good agents. And that's why. You go to areas where, oh man, out in the Pacific Northwest, I got a book that documented the customs and tribal behaviors of Pacific Northwest native cultures. And this is very offensive to many of the native cultures out there, but it was documented truth. Life was easy in the Northwest. There were many tribes of people that were every bit this sluggard that we see in verse 9. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep, so shall thy poverty come as one that travaileth, and thy want as an armed man. These people didn't have to work. Their winter huts, if you will, was called a wickiup. It was a bunch of fir branches stacked together, and they'd crawl in there and lay down and sleep. And the fir branches would provide a certain amount of insulation, and it would shed the water off, and they didn't have to work hard. And when they got hungry, they could go out to the shoreline, and they could find oysters and mussels and clams all year round. And things grew all the time. It didn't even snow that much. And in the fall, or let me think. I'm trying to think of when the I think it is in the fall that the salmon start running up the rivers, and literally you can walk into these streams and catch a salmon with your bare hands. I've done it. And it's amazing. The food is just plentiful. You don't have to work hard. There is an amazing thing that the smoking racks where the Native Americans smoked salmon, they are exactly the same in the east coast of the United States as they are in the west coast of the United States. Why is that? Because the people who they traded that smoked salmon to, they sold it to for goods like blankets and things like that, was the Hudson Bay Trading Company. And the Hudson Bay Company is the one who taught them how to smoke the salmon. Because prior to that, they never smoked salmon. They never put salmon up for preservation. They were never guardians of nature like our modern storytellers want us to believe. There were very few of the Native American tribes in the Pacific Northwest that were organized enough to have any kind of strong culture. And they have a name, and I can't remember the name, but it is a grouping of all of the Native American area residents who were not organized into formal tribes. They just wandered around, and they have a name for all of those undocumented Native Americans. And the ones that were documented, like the Vancouvers or the Yakimas and the Snoqualmies, they were known for pretty pretty much predatory natures. They would raid these other undocumenteds and take them as slaves. And there was all kinds of atrocities done with them. So the idea that America is a real, Native Americans are, not all of them, folks. Not all of them live up to the stories we get. Oh, Christmas tree, it's 10 o'clock. So the work ethic. Where is work ethic stronger? It's made stronger by hardship. Sorry. And overcoming that hardship by strong work. Yeah, Coeur d'Alene tribe. There we go. Glad it's over. Yeah, real history is far different than cleansed and documented new believism, isn't it? And so we come to about verse 11. So shall thy poverty come as an armed man. And we see impoverishment come by easy living. That's the fertilizer for a lazy man. And it used to be in America that when a man would come and court a young woman for marriage, the first thing that he would do, he would almost come to court with his bank book in hand to show that he was successful in life, in business, in that he was able to support a wife. The father of the young lady would, okay, you've got interest in my daughter, but I need to know that you're not looking to become my dependent son, but you're looking to take care of my daughter. I want to know how you are doing in business. What's your income? What's your ability to care for my daughter? Today, man, they say, look, I'm an apprentice body and fender helper. I've worked in this company for 11 years. I'm still a helper. But you know what? If things get tough, we'll just go on welfare. That's not exactly what I call successful. That's not a person that I would say is quality or a resource to depend on for my daughter. But today, that's all that people care about. They can fall back on public housing and food stamps or, social dependence. And that's a sad thing. That has destroyed the work ethic of our country. I understand that we need to care for the poor, but the method that it has been administered has created the poor. There needs to be a different answer. And perhaps there needs to be, I have thought, if I were king, how would I take care of the poor that are not working? I would give them incentive to work. I would take away the HUD housing that looks by comparison to be rather opulent. And I would have different layers of housing available. And if you were a person who didn't work, has no job, has no house, has nothing, then I would provide a barracks-like environment for that person to have a place to sleep. He would have a locker that was like our military has, and it would be supervised to make sure that no lawlessness or violence or predatory behavior happens in that barracks, there would be a guard in each one watching over these people. Not a video monitor, but we would have that too, but a guard, a real live guard in these large barracks to make sure that things don't go on that are not appropriate. And they would have like our military, oh, by the way, men in this one, women in that one, and they would have a group just like our barracks, just like our military. And when it's time to eat, there are 3 meals a day. Here's the cafeteria. This is what's served today. Oh, but I don't like that. Well, you don't have to eat, but this is your food. And we would take care of that. Now, with that would come the opportunity for job training. And you could go, everybody there would have a job. If you don't have a different job, a better job, then you get on the bus and you're going to go pick up litter on the streets. You're going to do, menial tasks that are equivalent to the kind of liberties that you have. And if you go to training, then you don't have to pick up trash today. You're going to go through training to become, a better worker, a better skilled worker. And if you maintain good enough grades, then you can keep going to the training. And then with that, you'll be given a more skilled job, an actual employment outside the system. And here's the bus that will take you to your place because you don't have, you're not buying your own car yet. You don't have the resources. And there will be financial people there to help you monitor your income and your payments and things of that sort. Guide them in wise financial management. And with the progressive steps, you can move up the roles to the goal, the end goal of getting you out of the system, managing your own affairs, living an honorable life. Boy, how would that go across DSHS today? They would cry, oh, how humiliating to force people into a situation like that, to treat them like, wait a minute, we treat our military that way. Is that humiliating or is that efficient? You see, it's all about politics, and it's all about enabling laziness. And that's my 2-bit rant for today. Amen? All right. Well, yeah. Yeah, the worst part is we're all paying for it. So, yeah, our government doesn't, penny ponders, you got it right there. It's the godly way of provision. Our government doesn't operate on those terms. No, they don't. They actually are empowered more by the more people that they hold within the poverty class. Their measure of power is increased by increasing the number of people dependent on their system. That's counterproductive. They ought to be seen as successful and promoted based on how many people that they help off of the roles rather than how many people that they grow within the roles. So, yeah, it's a mess. Well, we're not going to fix that by tomorrow, but we will be back again tomorrow and continue here in Proverbs chapter 6. So much good stuff in here. Amen. Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the wisdom that we gain from the book of Proverbs. Help us, Lord, to grow by it every day. In Jesus' sweet name, amen. God bless you all, and I'll see you again tomorrow.